lot, like moving the lot line, I think I still stand where I stand, where it's not that.
Which is where he is.
Yeah,
he is
yeah.
agreed.
So I guess I've changed my position.
On the merger.
Yeah, on the merger.
And you're the same way?
I am, yeah.
All right, well, all right, here's the one thing I feel about this, is that I never want to ever discuss this again. Entire life.
Same.
I never want to have this conversation. Do we have agreement on that? Do we have a general agreement that we never discuss this again? All right. So,
I just want.
Just to be clear, I have an open mind on this, but I want to see.
Alright.
The bulk tables change.
here's my suggestion. We got, at some point, we have to actually either definitively do something or definitively say we're not gonna do something.
Right.
I am fine with saying that we are going to, I'm not sure, can you parse this legislation in a way that we say we approve it as to lot line shifts, but not to mergers?
No, we don't have it in a resolution form tonight.
Oh, we don't have a legislation.
No.
All right, so let's get the
Well,
legislation.
we do. But Andy, I think, anticipated that because of I think Joe was going to suggest is that if we do the lot merger aspect, we're gonna amend our bulk regulations to include a floor area ratio restriction, other things to restrict sizing of buildings as lots get bigger, which is a very, very effective tool in controlling the size of buildings. But since lot merger is now off the table.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's why Andy didn't have the resolution ready. I'm not.
All right.
Okay.
We can't vote on this today. Consensus of the board. Lot mergers still have to go to planning board, lot line shifts do not.
Yes.
And for us to be able to approve the lot line shifts, we're gonna have to approve a FAR designation within the single family and multifamily zone, which we don't currently have. So we need to have the bulk tables adjusted. Everybody, which is the idea that if we're gonna have the lot line shift, which is not as necessary if we're not doing the merger of the lots, but whatever. Is everybody okay with that? So let's get that at some point. Can we get that on the agenda? Can we get some suggestions from Bob as to what the FAR would be for single family and multifamily zone? And then we can look at that.
Do you want to adopt a local, that's tonight, a local law just with the lot line change, which is not the merger, just the lot line change?
Yes.
You want that ready for, you know?
Let's get that. Well, the thing is, Joe said, and I'm fine with that. Joe doesn't want to approve the lot line shift legislation until we have FAR bulk regulation. Yeah, he doesn't want to approve it until there's a restriction on people's ability to do a lot line shift and then build a megalopolis house.
Okay.
So let's get it done, but we don't have to rush it.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's what I understood. That's what
No,
we don't
lot
want.
line, moving a lot line, adjusting a lot line is fine. Merging two lots.
So you're actually fine with doing this without, so we can get
Yes.
legislation on the lot line shift on the next meeting, but let's also put into for general good hygiene reasons, let's get a FAR, some legislation on the FAR bulkhead changes for the single family and
So I
multifamily.
understand, the board wants to vote on the lot line change element as a standalone.
Yes, without the merging.
So we'll just get that done,
Just get that done the next
and
meeting.
then delay for the consideration of the merger.
No, I don't think we're doing them. Would you, it doesn't matter about the FAR for the merger. Merger's dead.
Okay, so.
I got 3 votes, merger's dead.
Just forget the FAR thing too.
Well, I think they want to do the FAR thing anyway. Because we don't have, why don't we have a FAR designation for the, let's talk about it. Let's talk. All right. Is everybody understood about that?
Yes. Question for you, is someone in the email on the planning board just email me what the FAR is and what the bulk, because I still can't wrap my head around that.
Explain what FAR
Yeah,
is.
like we don't, like, I don't want to take up too much time today, if there's a separate time we can meet offline or
I
whatever.
can send you a definition.
Okay.
Well, definition, but actually practical
Yeah, I
explanation
don't understand.
is what I think she wants.
Is what I'm-
Because I just keep shortening it to square footage, but it's not square.
Yeah,
It's simple, the square footage of the house divided by the lot area. That's it. You take all the living area, living space of a home, whether it's 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, out of all, and not just a home, could be commercial building,
okay,
all of the square footage divided by the lot area, that is your floor area ratio.
Oh.
And you set a percentage as a maximum. So it could be 20%, 50%, 10%, 15%, 60%. That's what floor area ratio. It restricts the cubic size of the structure.
okay.
In relation to the land.
In relation to size of the lot.
I want Yeah, I wish someone explained that to me like 3 meetings ago. Yeah.
All right, any further comments on the public hearing? All right, we understood what we're doing. Lot line shift, yes. Merger, no. We can have legislation next week. And at some point, we should probably put into the hopper, into the pipeline, the idea of getting a FAR ratio set for the single family, multifamily zones. That all make sense to you too?
Appreciate all of you guys' attention and effort.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Brand new public hearing, because we can keep this public hearing
Yeah.
All
going.
right, motion, do I have to do anything to keep the public hearing continuing?
So, yeah, we have to do.
All right, we're gonna continue the public.
I think we prefer just starting from scratch.
Wait,
Okay.
To vote on just the lot line, do we need to do a re-notification?
I don't think so, because.
it's an amendment of the legislation.
Less impactful on the environment. You know.
So that's fine, so we don't need to do a public hearing.
No, we can continue this, but let's pick a date.
June
This is a
13th.
public hearing, all we're doing is review.
All right, we're continuing the public hearing to June 13th, 8 o'clock, Village Hall.
Um,
Do I need to vote on that?
we'll go away next, and this is a simple fix, right? So we'll just- there's no urgency, they got a couple of these applications a year. I don't think
When
there's
would you
any-
like to have the meeting? When would you like to have the public hearing continue to?
Yeah, make it to the second meeting in June, or is that the second?
No, that's the first one.
It's the second meeting.
That's to take one of us
No.
on vacation.
I know these, he goes to places
I'm
too.
looking at another one.
This is the Jersey Shore.
Actually, a staycation.
All right, so this would now be for the meeting on,
It's not
The 27th.
27th, it's gotta be the 27th.
So this public hearing for lot line changes and lot mergers, latter aspect is gonna be removed from it, but this public hearing will be continued to June, is it
June
June
27th.
27th, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock PM, 2024, here in Village Hall. I'm making this announcement, Joe.
Okay,
This way, we don't have to be public.
And we will have a resolution for the adoption of this.
Of the lot line change. Yes. So public hearing will be continued and remain open for all the folks out there listening and watching.
and then we shall never talk about it again.
June
After June 27th. Never. Forget it. All right, where are we? We got the public hearings through. We only have one action, we have
One action.
2 action items.
We voted on one already.
Oh, no, we have one. We did the resolution. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes
So.
from 5-9? Second, all in favor?
I.
All opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention.
We only have, are we ready to do that?
Yeah.
What's the minutes on what? April what? Motion to approve the minutes for April
25th?
Yes.
25th.
Okay.
Take it. Motion second, all in favor? Motion approved, minutes are approved. We've now cleared out the minutes. We have 2 action items, one of which is the resolution that we've already passed with regard to the veterinarian. This brings us to 6.1, accepting the audited voucher survey. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Any comment or question?
No.
All in favor?
Five.
Motion passes unanimously. And just scrolling through, we have department reports. Yeah, let's skip through that and we'll do the public comment on the general. All right, Orangetown Police Department, we have a meeting coming up next week. I'll give you a quick, just. We have discussed, and I can never remember what I've discussed with people. If we talked about the constable, village constable.
Didn't you get another motion for that too?
We don't have, we got a motion for that, but we didn't put it on the agenda for tonight, the constable. There was an issue with civil service, so we pulled it.
Oh,
We have an issue trying to work out public civil service. All right,
well, I wasn't here for the constable session.
okay, then I'll just summarize in the context of the police report that I had a conversation with Chief Butterworth about our proposal that we had been talking about having a quality of life code enforcement officer. And that person would have the responsibilities to enforce village code, walk around the village,
Yeah.
shine, be eyes and ears of the police. The problem was that there's no civil service a description for that role. All code enforcement officers are all building related, so we couldn't it would be a real pain, I think, to start a new job description. But we did find a job description for village constable, which has exactly that description.
Okay.
So we're gonna petition to get that with
And
the county. I talked about it with Chief Butterworth. He liked the idea. The idea is that this person would not be a cop, they would not be armed, but they would supplement the police and handle the things that the police are lower priority for them, the petty crimes, the things that come up. It's litter, people putting garbage out on Saturday morning when they're not supposed to put out till Monday morning, stuff like that. So we need someone to do that. So we're gonna have probably more than one person. We're gonna get the approved by the county, and then it's gonna be something that we're gonna get the job description out, take applicants, and we're gonna look for someone to look for two people, because they have to work Friday and Saturday nights, can't ask one person to do that. Any comments or questions?
No, that answered the question of an email that Andy, you never answered, but yes, thank you.
I think it's a great idea. It really is.
Yep, not to shock you.
You know, I love the title, constant.
Yeah, no, that's a great time. It's very old timey.
very.
We're not gonna get them a hat though. They're not gonna have like a Bobby hat, or something like
Not even a
that.
badge?
No, they may have been badge, but you're not gonna have like those fancy hats that constables, you think. constables wear.
I feel like I can't vote for this.
So, all right, we have to add the hat in order
Yeah.
to get, okay, well, we'll add that. If that's what it takes to get the vote, we'll do it. So I want to thank Chief Butterworth and I want to thank the Orangetown Police Department for working with us on this. And they also said that they will work to orient the person, to help the person understand what, where are the hot spots, where are the issues that pop up, things like that. All right, do we have a village clerk report? Do we have a village administrator report?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Couple of things. Thank you to the Keep Rockin' Beautiful for organizing the litter cleanup. I know some of the trustees participated in that. It's always great to see volunteers picking up trash.
That was Saturday. Yes, louder.
Thank you to the Keep Rockin' Beautiful volunteers who helped out with the cleanup a week or so ago. The mayor's already talked about the park project. The playground should be finished and ready for a ribbon by early next week. And the lawn is going to be closed for a while the grass grows. Otherwise, we're nearing completion on that project, which is great. You may have noticed we've torn up a sidewalk from a key bank to be replaced. So that's the kind of the close to the end zone on our famous Broadway sidewalk project. The consolidated funding application deadlines are coming up in July. I'm planning on proposing to the board that we try again for money for the bulkhead wall repair for the River Club restaurant site. We have some thoughts about how to enhance that application and hope for a positive response from the state this time around. That's our priority for the CFA. The DRI is also coming around as well, which is due in September. And we need to review the committee, convene the committee, review our previous application, and sort of think of changes that make sense to propose. That needs to happen. The sustainability group is pursuing a couple of different energy campaigns right now. They're inviting village residents to sign up for community solar for their own homes. The village has already signed a deal for its procurement. The more people who sign up for that program, the closer the village gets to being eligible for more grants for more good stuff.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
Are any condos, co-ops or apartment buildings under that? umbrella?
Anybody who has an electricity bill can participate,
Okay,
unless you
great.
already have solar panels on your house.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'll stop there.
Okay, I have a question for you. I don't know if it's us, I think it's O&R, but by Tom Towers and by the old Holland Hayes Theater and the Y, it is so dark there. It's just the lights aren't working and it's very dark. And I'm just concerned about it.
We might need to take a look and see if one of those streetlights is out.
Okay,
I'll do that.
thanks.
All right, let's go to old business. We'll hold off on night cares for now. We'll just get through some of the things that we have to discuss. It might take some time. That 8 point, well, what's 8.4? What's 8.4? Let's get through the Memorial Park tree planting plan. That's quick.
The board has discussed this. And I just wanted you to know that we're moving forward with that. There's been about 8 new trees planted in the park. We followed the plan that we had talked about before. And when next time you're down there, you'll see them. They go kind of along the side of the basketball court out towards the skate park. And there's one over by the splash pad as well. So we're looking for opportunities to plant trees, and that was something everybody agreed on with the Parks Commission, the Parks Conservancy. The board was apprised of it, so yes, the trees down in the park. And thank you to Marcy Denker and the tree committee for helping kind of work on that plan together. The trees are actually planted by our contractor that's doing the park
So,
and paid for by the grant.
Is this in the packet? Is this, sorry. What you talking about?
Yeah, those are the drawings.
Okay.
can I ask you a question? How do you guys figure out where the trees are going?
So we had a meeting down at the park with the Conservancy, with our tree planting group and the Parks Commission. And Marcy had developed a plan that shows the fully grown tree and what its sort of width would be to make sure it's not too close to a fence or gonna drop a bunch of leaves on the basketball court, and things like that. So taking into account what it will look like when it's fully grown as far as the view. Matters like that, essentially. The tree species being a native species and sort of in the right kind of choice of species for that level of sunlight and that kind of soil.
I love it, really detailed,
It's fairly detailed, yeah.
not just tossing them down.
Mixing them together, different species, and create a diverse looking.
All right, so let's talk about 8.2 and 8.3, which were both proposals that came from Joe that we all kind of jumped on with to kind of figure them out. And the first one has to do with the DMU2 zone, which is the area, mostly the area on Upper Main Street, north of kind of Franklin, a little bit above that, where there's been a lot of construction and some concern about a what's it called, the effect?
Canyon.
Canyon effect of like being very narrow, tall buildings right on the zone. When the DMU2 was created, the big change to the DMU2 is that it eliminated the requirement to have ground floor retail the way we have the requirement for ground floor retail on in the DMU1, and it did posit a setback, which there was some problem in the application, which is why at least one of the buildings does not have at least a 10-foot setback, but there is a 10-foot setback. I've had conversations individually with members of the board, not collectively, Dennis, individually with members of the board, and came to this suggestion, which I'll throw out there and we can discuss. There's 4 elements that we've kind of talked about on the board. I talked about with each of you individually. And that had to do with the ground floor setback, a setback at 32 feet, which would be an additional setback to kind of reduce the canyon effect upper levels, a minimum frontage to make sure that the building's relatively wide, so it's not a sliver. And then regarding cannabis dispensaries, allowing cannabis dispensaries in DMU2 the way they're allowed in DMU1, and the commercial corridor, which is just further up the hill on Route 59. In discussions where it kind of ended up with a consensus was to move the ground floor setback from 10 feet to 15 feet and add that additional setback at 32 feet, which would be 5 feet. There was at one point talking about making it 10 feet. It was going to be 15 feet from the ground and then another 10 feet up at 32 feet. Felt that might be a little too much. So it's 15 and then 5. And then I'm adding a minimum frontage of 75 feet, which was Bob's suggestion, and then allowing cannabis dispensaries because they never really should have been excluded in the first place when we passed the DMU2. I'll throw that out there as being a proposal which could be reduced to language in a resolution and a revision to the legislation that created the DMU2.
Legislation, drafted legislation first, and then the
And then
adoption.
have a public hearing and then have a resolution. Okay, but I want to know what's everybody's sense with the compromise of ground floor setback 10 to 15 and a new 32-foot setback to 5 feet. Thoughts? This is Joe, well, Joe, you.
Yeah, I wanna, yeah,
Yeah, Joe, this was just, Joe and I talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about it. Basically, it will reduce the canyon effect.
yeah,
Okay, and we talk about 32 feet height, and then the building will be terraced back 5 feet.
At
Yeah.
least 5.
I just wanna know-
At least 5 feet.
yeah, like, are you're okay with
I'm okay.
that?
with
Okay,
it. I mean, there's not much space up there.
right,
So whatever we could do to minimize that canyon effect.
yeah,
I think it's a great suggestion.
I'm fine with the compromise, it sounds like well thought out, and,
It's a balance.
yeah, it's a balance, really, and it's kind of goes back to like,
So proceed from south.
yeah.
But it, no.
All right, so,
Sucks, but I'm agreeing.
Yeah,
all right, so, I'll read that again, make sure we got it. I can just send you want me to send you an email which has the, Andy? We'll send you an email which contains that?
That'd be great.
Okay, all right. But just to confirm on the record, it's moved the ground floor setback to 15 feet, add a 5-foot setback at 32 feet, at a minimum frontage of 75 feet, and allow the cannabis dispensaries in the DMU2.
But on the ground floor, not on the third floor.
Yes, you don't want them going upstairs, yeah, they come down, that's not good. All right, the other one for 8.3, the waterfront zone to reduce the scale of new development. Remember, this would not apply to any existing developments that are in the pipeline, it would be for new developments. The proposal had been to, at one point, the proposal was to revoke the 2017 amendments to the waterfront zoning. We kind of realized that there's a lot of stuff in there that's just much more detailed in a good way, in terms of the authority it gives us. So we didn't want to do that, but there was, I think, a consensus on the board to ratchet back the maximum height, width, and FAR back to the levels that we had in 2017, while keeping all the other language the same. I've talked about it. I talked about it with a couple of the trustees, and what we came up with was to basically do all three. Reduce the max height from 52 to 45 feet, reduce maximum height, what did I say? Max height, maximum height from 52 to 45, reduce the maximum width from 60% or from 70% of the parcel to 60%, and then reduce the maximum FAR from 1.5 to 0.9. But Joe and I did discuss that we wanted to keep some language in the zoning regulation, which would allow the village board to have the discretion to go back up to 1.5, right? We talked about that. So what we need to do is we need to just we need to work out some language, Dennis, that says it formally is maxed out at 0.9, but I think it's more of a measure of emphasis of the way it's framed. 0.9, but there is, under the circumstances as are described in the legislation, where the board could go above 0.9 to 1.5,
Depending on special,
as opposed to there being a default.
bonus.
Andy, can you articulate this to Bob and have him give the first crack at it? That's how we usually do this.
Okay, I will write this up.
Together a rough draft and I clean it up.
I will write this up too if it's an agreement. We have an agreement. So basically, we're doing, this is what Joe really wanted. I felt that it was fine. I think that as long as we have some discretion to increase the FAR, if there is some reason for us to do so. I just don't want to take away our discretion to be able to maximize the use of the space depending on the height and the width. Any comments, questions? All right, so we're good on that?
Yeah.
All right, so I will get you that information as well, Andy. And that is 8.2 and 8.3. We've talked about 8.4. All right, 8.1. All right, it's late, so I'm gonna do this very, very quickly. We obviously had last summer, we had some real concerns about the quality of life in the downtown, specifically issues relating to aggressive panhandling. As you know, panhandling is legally protected activity. It's First Amendment free speech, but the aggressive panhandling, which involves aspects of menacing or touching or following people or certain things, is not legal our issue is less with the legality and the illegality, but what we want to try to do is to try to improve the quality of life in the downtown. So we came up with the concept called the Nyack Cares Initiative. We're about to launch it. I'll give you some information about it now. There's 3 parts to it. The first part is we've created a fund called the Nyack Cares Fund. You can find information about it if you go to nyackcares.org. It's live now. You can actually make donations. The idea of the fund is to raise money to treat the root causes that lead to panhandling, like mental illness and homelessness and poverty and food scarcity and things like that, drug abuse, addiction, and raise money to address those. We have a board that's been created, an advisory fund has been created within the United Way. The fund advisors include Phyllis Frank, they include Nicole Hines, they include Louise Parker, former trustee, they include some local business people, including Cheryl Bond. And they're going to make decisions on how the money is invested, how it's spent in the community. The idea, though, is that we raise the money by putting up posters in the downtown, in the villages, that look like this. And that tell people, we ask them not to give to panhandlers, but instead give to the fund to actually treat the conditions that could cause the problems that lead people to do panhandling. And we didn't want to put up signs saying, please don't give to panhandlers, because that would, I think, be against the ethos of Nyack. So instead, we wanted to give people an alternative that makes more of a difference in people's lives than giving on the street. As you can see on each poster, there's a QR code, there's a domain. You go to nyackcares.org, you can find the donation page. If you do the QR code, you can find the donation page. And we're going to be getting copies of these out to the shops in the retail space, or we might be putting them up in other places as well. The money to pay this is not coming from the village. It will be coming from private donations made to the Nyack Cares Fund itself. We also have palm cards that do the same thing, that would be handed out and available at shops that people can pick up. I'll give you each a palm card here.
Thanks.
So that's the first part. Anybody have any? I'll take from the board, and if any public has a comment or question about it.
I have a question that I guess is somewhat adjacent to a little bit of this. Actually, you know what? I'll hold off on it because I think it's more a question for you, Andy.
Anybody else?
Does this need to have this is not connected to?
It's not a form. I mean, it's been an initiative coming from the village that I've worked on, but we're not taking any formal responsibility for it other than to help promote it. Because we're going to be promoting it through the other pieces that we're going to talk about right now in terms of the Nyack Cares Initiative issues.
Well, I guess this question would be more for the board members of this initiative. In terms of how they plan to actually do that directing.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
The idea is that they're going to solicit grants from local nonprofit organizations that do service the community. And they're going to say, you know, here's what we're looking for, make this proposal. And they're going to then fund it with the money that gets raised from Nyack Cares.
Okay.
What I've already talked to the board members, what they decided was that the first thing they want to do is actually spend a few $1,000s to hire somebody to actually do interviews and to meet with the people who are doing the panhandling or doing other things within the village, and find out what the genesis, what are the issues that really need attention, and start to so they can have some idea of where to direct their money.
So
They want to kind of get the cart, you know, get the horse lined up before the cart.
So I guess hearing that, I guess my question now becomes a little bit more relevant. As I'm sure everyone knows, state got a lot in the opioid settlement. The opioid settlement with all the major pharmaceuticals and their families, and New York State has get a lot of money that is supposed to go towards doing, you know, harm reduction, getting into the community, somewhat similar to what Nyack Cares has been doing. Have we, the village of Nyack, seen any of those funds come down? Because I know there's concern of where that money is going towards. The reason I bring it up is because that is money that the village could use towards also achieving this goal.
Are they-
Not to say that Naya Care shouldn't be in existence, I just think that they can work in tandem.
Are they passing that money through to municipalities, not
Yes, it should be-
nonprofits, going to
It's-
municipalities?
Yes, but where we need to come in is the money is going to count. There's a lot of oversight, on the state level amongst what the governor and the legislator are all doing. There's very little oversight to what is happening in the counties and towns and the villages. And the concern is that there is money, there's a pot of money sitting here that is going towards, police cars or dogs or things that are not meant to address substance abuse issues and poverty and things that we are seeing in Nyack.
Yeah,
And so I want to see us try to tap into that, whether
You
it's
absolutely
talking to Teresa or talking to our county legislator. About getting some of that money here, because we all know this only deals with part of the problem. That's why we're doing the constable and all these other things, but those funds could also be helping in this way as well. That's what that's where the oversight is lacking. I don't know how the county.
so let's look into that, because it would be great to get money to address some of these issues. Obviously, this is not the only thing that we'd like to be able to do about this.
I have a
Yes.
question before you move on. What would be the role of a volunteer? They're asking for volunteers to help.
Let's see, where is that in the context of?
Right here. Want to help make Nyack and.
Oh, the volunteers would be people that would, and if they're doing any fundraising or something like that, they put on events. Also, they're always looking for people that might work on the website, or might work on, marketing the program or things like that. And people can volunteer for a variety of reasons. This is, I think, a more general, that if people want to volunteer to be part of the ambassador program, which we'll talk about next. Because the
Okay.
people might volunteer that, hey, I want to help. Here's one way to help is to volunteer for the ambassador program. So I want to say the point of the Nyack Cares fund itself is the idea that we want to give people an alternative to giving on the street, to give in a way that makes a difference in people's lives. So that will get started. Anybody want to come and make a comment or question? I'll take a public comment. Question. Sure, come on.
The question.
Give your name and
Even Nyack,
okay,
been here long enough, seen many of the people in the street, which I'm sure you will have.
just louder, a little louder.
Gotten to know some of them personally. I like to know how, it's all well and good, have a big fund, give people an option to give money, but how's that going to directly work with those people on the street? There's no the right to refuse any services or what have you. But what do you know that they intend to do?
Well, here's the thing. Well, once they raise the money, then they can figure out where it can be best invested. That's why I said the first thing they're going to do is try to figure out what's causing the problem that they want to address, and so they can start directing money to that. To get into the details of what social services and how they should be applied, and what do you do if somebody refuses opportunities that we're not a social services organization. What we're doing is we're just promoting this organization that is going to be doing a marketing campaign to encourage people not to give on the streets. So it's not incentivizing panhandling on the street. That's basically the limitation of that. There's two other issues that we're going to talk about with regard to this that don't have to do with the fund as well, which will have some impact.
I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to think that the people on the street, and again, how many are we talking about? I mean, we're there long enough, I could probably count them on one hand. Some of them are practically citizens, we know that. Give them $5 and they usually go and get some food. To me, that's more beneficial.
If that's what you want to do, I can't change your
And
mind.
I understand
But
that.
everybody who works at these social services organizations says, don't give the money on the street. Everyone that cares for these people as their life, work. They say, don't give on the street. There's nobody that counsels to give money. But if that makes you feel
No, I get
that you're
that.
making
I
a
get that.
difference, I can.
We do what we want that way.
Sure.
But I also think that there's a certain gap between, having social services and getting people to, they don't need job training. They don't need, they don't need counseling. They need food, they need a place to stay, and they need some comfort. And unless you're gonna have them swept off the street, it's gonna look ugly.
No one's sweeping anybody off the street.
Well, what else are you gonna do with it? That's my point. How does this get executed
Okay,
on the street?
fair point. Thank you for making a public comment. We appreciate it. And you send this for, how long you send this for?
It was 3 minutes.
I said we had 1 minute. We did 1 minute public comment. That's what we decided. All right. but let's, from, anybody else have comments on this issue? Yes,
Jackie Drexler again, I'm gonna use my big voice.
Valley Cox.
Yes. Okay, I used to work with Helping Hands and, did the night counseling, Christmas, did a lot of work with the homeless population. Many of them don't want to be in homes. My question is, is this organization going to be partnering with other local mental health organizations? Because it's fine to be saying you want to do this, but unless you actually have something to do, it's rather meaningless. And the only other thing I'd like to say is, I'm quite sure, as Ms. Pascal was saying, that there is a big pot of money there. And I'm also quite sure that that big pot of money is going to the county. All the counties are getting money. And there's not terribly much oversight on our county. So I would be looking into that and maybe having some talk with Dr.
All right.
With Dr. Susan Warder, who's the Commissioner of Mental Health. Thank you.
Just to answer your question, absolutely. We have to, if there's money to be had, we should be going after it from the state to try to address some of these issues from a municipal perspective. The answer to your question about NIA Cares is that they will be, as I said before, they will be soliciting grants, specific grants that they will be soliciting from organizations like Helping Hands, like Catholic Charities, like anybody else who's doing this kind of work on addiction, on mental illness and whatnot within the county. I don't think they're going to do it. They're not going to have the staff to do anything on their own. It's all going to be redirecting money to the organizations that are already providing the services within that.
I would just like to say that redirecting money is great, but somehow it still never gets to people who seem to need it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, anything else? All right, the other part, there's two other parts to the CARES initiative. One of them we already talked about, which is that we wanted to improve community policing, which we're going to do with regard to the constable, that we're going to be getting county approval to add to our civil service roles here in the village. And that hopefully we'll have that person, we'll start the hiring process by next month and get somebody in place for the summer. Probably more than one person. And that person will be responsible for just being out, being eyes and ears, walking the beat, the way people always talk about the way that peace officers used to walk the beat, things like that. The third element, we also, by the way, I would just say that we've gotten, since this issue became more salient last summer, the OPD, Orangetown Police Department's been they've been very responsive to us in our request to have them be more visible within the downtown. They absolutely have, and they've been doing it at our request because that's not the model of policing that they generally follow. They're more responsive. They want to be quick responsive by being in their cars, but they've been willing to do patrol in the downtown. All right. Third thing is the ambassador program. The ambassador program is modeled on a similar program in Pittsburgh, where essentially you hire for the summer, you hire, I think, late high school, early college students on summer break, and they go out in pairs on ships, and they wear brightly colored shirts and maybe a brightly colored matching hat, and they walk around with these palm cards, and they walk around with maps of the village, and they walk around with instructions of how to use the community meters, and they're generally there to answer questions and be helpful for people, and also to be an additional eyes and ears on the street with a cell phone that they can reach the police if they need them, as well as just put a happy face, put a smile, be out there to try to create some goodwill within the village at high traffic time. So the idea was to 3 points: the CARES fund, to reduce the incentive to do battling, the constable and increase policing, and 3, the volunteer ambassador program. Actually, it won't be volunteers, ambassador program. We're going to be paying those students. It's going to be managed. Do we know this for sure yet?
We don't have a contract with the NIAC Center as expressed interest.
We're trying to work it out with the NIAC Center. They would manage the program. We would pay them. They would pay the students. They would pay somebody to manage the program. It'll be done outside of the village, and there will also be volunteers. So if anybody's interested in taking a shift and getting the training and getting a shirt, and they'll be able to I'm gonna take a shift or two, to walk around and just try to be helpful to people on the streets of Black. So those are the three pieces. They're gonna be, publicly launched in the next week or two with some information videos. The posters and the palm cards will start showing up in shops and, we'll see how it goes.
We'll put
Any
stickers on, meeting leaders.
We can put stickers on menus. It's a good idea. We didn't get that. We didn't have that.
That's where I think a lot of people in the initial complaints were saying it was while they were paying for the parking. That
That's a
they
good
were
idea.
costed.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, I do also just.
We can just, I can get that from Harrington. Let's
Yeah.
I'll add we'll do just the, this part,
Yeah,
or like this part.
Yeah.
This part.
I do just also want to note too, because of all the chatter about this, I do want us to be cognizant of people's perception of safety versus the reality of safety. Nyack is a very safe place. Our crime is incredibly low, as it's been for a while. As this gentleman pointed out, we do know who are the people who we see. So before you're rushing to comment on Facebook about your concerns, it would be nice for everyone to sort of realize who we're dealing with. These are not strangers coming from different places. These are community members and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. So going on social media just to complain, bring those complaints to the village if you're actually concerned, or do what we've been saying to do for the past couple months, which is call OPD. They are walking and they are.
Good point. Good point. Anybody else, any comment or question? All right, so that finishes off, I believe, the old business. The new business, just to notify, we had a parking authority meeting. We went over the budget. The parking authority did well this past year, has started to pay down a debt that it has to the village, which is mostly a paper debt, but also pays the village for the leasing of the streets to do the parking authority. We did approve in that meeting, meeting the parking authority board. The parking authority board did approve raising the hourly rate for the parking enforcement personnel by $2 and also adding another part-time person to work largely the marina area and the park, Memorial Park.
Evenings in the downtown
What?
and
And
fill slots and
fill slots in the downtown. All right. So that's the parking authority meeting. We had a couple people attend. We also had a discussion with a business person who runs a childcare operation on 3rd and Broadway and wanted to know whether or not she could get an area set aside for pickup and drop off for about a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night so that kids weren't getting dropped off in traffic on Broadway. We said we'd look into it. We're going to try to put something together that would give the people who are using with their kids, make it safe for them to get dropped off and picked up. We didn't have a vote or anything, but we did have a sense of the board and Andy's going to work on that. All right. We don't have we don't have executive. Do we have executive session tonight? No executive session. All right. No executive session. So we have public comment. Let's get the list. How many people are on the list?
Before the public comment,
Yes.
I make so I spoke with Andy, and we probably know about the marina parking hours. Can we get that changed instead of at midnight to 10 p.m.? And
No, we have it to midnight. The problem is we want people to park there. And we want people to park there who are going to dinner and might not be done by 10 o'clock. We want people to park there who are working at the bars so they can, they don't park on the street. And they get off their shifts later. I understand the point is to try to limit people who are going there and doing bad deeds. But one thing what I would say is, let's hold off on that for now because there is a plan to do this hopper trolley, which would run from there and which would probably increase the amount of parking, legitimate parking that gets done down there. And thereby, if we get more people parking legally down by the marina, that will push out the people who are there to run their engines and make noise. So I'm not 100% against it, but I think, let's see if we can we have to wait to find out what our budget looks like at the end of the month. With the we close the 23-24 budget. And then we can decide whether we're gonna be able to do that, and if we're not, then I would be okay with that. You good with that?
Yeah.
All right, how many people we got?
Thank you. Leo.
All right, start the list and let's work our way down.
Well, one comment.
Hi, Leo Sanders. Yes, everyone. Leo Sanders. And the event that I would like to have is to have music on Friday nights for the time of maybe 4:30 to about 6, inspirational gospel music. Sometimes we will just have refreshments also. The time to just enjoy the evening and just play music and let everybody just come.
Yes, you called about this.
Yes.
I'm looking for the communication, but we didn't get a communication.
No.
We got a call about it.
And you want this at the park?
No, at the square.
Oh,
Yeah, right over there by the square. A lot of people use it for a couple of things and, you know, there's
Hezekiah used to swear.
yeah, Hezekiah Square and we will play, you know, everything, keep everything low and moderate and, like Fridays.
What's that?
Fridays.
Like Fridays, like maybe one or 2 Fridays in a month, you know, depending, nothing every
From
single
like 4
Friday.
and for an hour and a half, like what hours of operation?
About 4:30 to about 6:30, something like that.
I think this is not dissimilar to what we discussed earlier with regard to the salsa dancing.
Right.
Is that it's a matter of, we don't generally approve ongoing weekly events
Okay.
like that will take over a public space for, especially with the amplified music, for an overly long, for just an unending every week at the same time. If you wanted to propose a couple of days that you did this, you know, we offered the other gentleman three opportunities and picked 3 Fridays
Okay.
to do that, propose that, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it
Okay.
plays out. And so I'll
Sounds
give you, if you want to propose to Andy, and if he proposes, if I got the consensus here, if he proposes 3 dates for 4 to 6,
Yeah.
so it doesn't.
And I'm just
dinner
saying
hour.
that, I mean, sometimes it might be less than that. Might be less than, it might be.
I appreciate you wanting to do this. It's very nice you want to do this. It's a delightful idea. We just get very careful about giving over the public spaces to individuals for as an ongoing permanent matter, yeah. So Andy, get 3 dates. And you're gonna have to be careful with the amplified sound, you know, if it's not going throughout the whole village.
I will make a note that I know there's some folks who have been peacefully protesting on
Okay.
during that era on Friday, so just for the sort of obvious that there may be others in that same space.
Okay, but they're not,
They don't go, I don't know how often, sometimes at one point it was almost every Friday, if not every day, and I think
But during the
since,
day, I thought.
no, around that, no,
Yeah,
around
it's around that
that
time.
36-ish time, yeah.
well, let's pick 3 weeks, not consecutive. 3 weeks that aren't consecutive, try to, look at the calendar to see what the, you know, what's going, if there's anything else going on that Friday night. Huh? Yeah, well, we're talking about it. It's not his time, it's our time now. All right, because he had a proposal, so we want to talk about the proposal. So we good on that? We can do that 3 weeks, 2 hours, non-consecutive weeks. Friday nights in Hezekiah.
Most of that other.
Yeah, well, I think that they're gonna. But I would suggest that the protest.
We're gonna have a DJ and we're playing music and he might have a screen where people can follow the lyrics or just come and just sing along. Just gathering together. Yeah, karaoke.
Okay.
We'll see what goes over 3 events.
Okay.
And you are,
I'm Rod Smith, I'm a technical person,
okay,
and I know that you are kind of considering low noise. I have a battery powered speaker, so
okay,
small
they're not gonna
speaker.
be, okay.
Yeah, we don't need.
All right.
like-
Well, thank you, gentlemen, we appreciate you
Thank
bringing this to us and work it out with Andy, and we'll get a resolution on the agenda next time.
Thank you.
Next is Rod Smith, but you already said your piece.
Yeah, I'm back, but I'm not sure. Hi, everyone, I'm Rod Smith again, thank you. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to address this concern. But is Nye Housing Authority like with Village of Nye?
Nyack Housing
Yes.
Authority operates as an independent agency under our auspices, basically.
A good friend of mine and my band instructor, Bert Hughes, when they first had the development in Waldron Terrace, I live on 71 West Broadway, which is kind of adjacent to the new expansion. And they promised to make sure that the trees don't kind of encroach over my fence. It killed my fence, had to be replaced. And I don't know who bought it, but it's doing the same thing, and the trees damaged it again. They're growing through my fence again. I know that there's people that's cutting some trees now, but they've already killed my fence again, and they're growing like through my fence.
If you could give, your information, I could reach out to you so that I could talk to you about it. I'm the liaison, I'll talk to see the scope of what you're talking about.
Can I talk to other Carl or something?
Yeah, he's temporary, he's acting director right now, they're looking for one.
Okay,
But if you give Rosa your information, I could talk to you and I could find out what's going on and I could contact him or put you in touch with him.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up,
Oh, sorry. Rhea? Matthew.
Sorry, it's all on the list. Is everybody on the sheet? Are you on the sheet also? Oh, some people didn't sign the sheet, Rosa.
all right, well, if anybody needs to sign the sheet, wait till there's a break and then you sign the sheet.
Okay.
Okay, we're.
Hello, my name is Rhea Matthews. I live in Nyack. Sorry. My name is Rhea Matthews. I live in Nyack. I'm here again to urge you to place the ceasefire resolution on your agenda immediately. The ongoing genocide in Gaza demands our attention and action because the US funds Israel killing civilians by the thousands. Taking a stand against systemic violence, such as the United States funding of the genocide in Gaza, is crucial in addressing the alarming rise in local and personal acts of violence. When we tolerate or indirectly support large-scale violence, it perpetuates a culture of hate and violence within our own community. By advocating for peace and justice globally, we can actively work to eradicate hate and promote peace locally. The board has shown a disturbing lack of political response to the acts of violence and racism experienced by members of this community. There has been no public political response.
Yeah, you can
Thank you.
wrap it up.
To the hate and racism that Palestinian Americans and their allies have faced here in Nyack. So let me be clear, the best way to address incidents of hate against Palestinians and their allies in this village is to pass the ceasefire resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rita. If anybody else wants to sign up, come between speakers and just add your name to Rose's. But Rosa, give us the next name.
Next name, I believe, is Vern Meyer.
I would also like to urge the board to pass the ceasefire resolution. I know the board has pushed back a little bit and said that it's not a local issue. It's national issue. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand that the board has said it's not a local issue, it's a national issue, but I beg to differ because community funds are being drawn from communities all around the country and being sent to the military industrial complex to bomb and kill innocent people all over the world, not just Palestine, but everywhere. And these resources can be used in your communities for infrastructure, for healthcare, every other thing. So I know that there's been pushback saying it's not a local issue, but this is the reason I'm saying that it actually is a local issue and it will come back. If we don't address it, the longer this situation goes on, more resources our communities are going to lose. For what? For blowing up bombs and everything else. That's all I got to say.
Mark Hessen.
I want to say that I'm an internationalist. That is that human life does not have borders. And I think we all should be concerned And when we hear on the news, abstract things like, 40,000 people being killed, like children and women, we should envision in our minds our family every day being killed by bombs. And that's why I would like to recommend, based upon Israeli foreign policy or policy, we need to make a decision. Israeli policy is basically one where they have to get rid of apartheid. Apartheid is not acceptable. The only way you can get rid of apartheid is if you come to this two-state agreement, which none of the Israelis want. Nobody wants that anymore. The only other way to get rid of apartheid is eliminating the people from the land. There's 7.3 million, can I just finish?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
There's 7.3 million Jews, there are 7.3 million Arabs in this greater Israel. And that's the situation right now. The fact of the matter is there is only one way that the Israeli government has decided they can get rid of apartheid, and that is by eliminating the people through starvation, through killing, through making the homes and the hospitals unlivable. And I'd say to you, you have to make a decision that's a moral one, that's an ethical one, not a politically convenient one. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
Okay.
Before I speak to this topic, I just also need to say that
You do only get 1 minute.
I don't know how I'm gonna squeeze this in. I'm really good at this, but first of all, the small gatherings on Friday is in memory of Sean Harris until the Attorney General releases the report. And I do believe that this is the month that he passed away, so thank you here. Okay. So I just wanted to talk about discrimination and fear. 50 years ago here in Nyack in the 1970s, my parents used the old lighthouse for their art studio until they started getting bomb threats because they were the Jewish people. 50 years later, we have people like myself who are going to ceasefire rallies feeling uncomfortable because no one is paying attention to the people of Palestine at this point. And I'm believing that the fear that I went through as a kid when my parents had bomb threats is nothing compared to the fear that the people of Gaza are living with. And I would just like this board and the mayor to take a stand and show support for our community members who are impacted by this, who right now feel fear, show humanitarian compassion, and consider signing this resolution. Thank you.
Beth Rizzo.
So tired. I'm really here to talk about the leaf blowers, but I'm just gonna briefly say I'm a proud Jew and a proud Zionist, and the only genocide perpetuators are Hamas. Jews are victims of genocide, and they've always been. Okay, leaf blowers. We worked for years to get this leaf blower ordinance. How could you even possibly consider taking it away? I mean, on my way here tonight, a resident of, Rockland Gardens said to me, "Where you all going?" She's a neighbor of mine. I said, "We're going to the village board to talk about the leaf blower problem." She said, "Please tell them that everybody in the projects here hates those things. We don't want those things, and we'd be willing to do anything to get rid of them." This guy who spoke tonight and said that he needs his leaf blowers happens to be blowing them in the project's windows. They hate it. They're being assaulted and they're being abused. And they don't feel, because they're in housing, they don't feel that they have the right to come here and say, "We don't like it," because they're in public housing. She begged me, "Please tell them we don't want these things," okay? So think about not just middle-class people, but the people in public housing who can't stand them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up.
Henry Grant.
Yep, Henry Wren. I was there too when we talked to the lady from Rockland Gardens. And the contractor you know, a lot of people can bid and get contracts. It's a really good job to take care of all those apartments. He was told by the police 3 times to not do it, and he came back the next week and did it again and again and again.
Primo landscaping.
So Primo Landscaping, McClary. So if he doesn't want to follow the law, then, oh, okay, well, that didn't work, so I'll just come here and ask the board to change it. That's not how we really should look at things. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if he has any time left, I'm gonna add,
No,
he doesn't.
no, you don't get to, we don't stack the time. His time is his time. You went over as well. Next up,
Joseph Salerno.
Hi, my Joe Slaughter, and I'm representing 197 Sickles Avenue.
Speak a little about it.
In September, oh, I don't. Take that back. April, the last week in April. You were discussing the legal aspect of the.
EPTA.
ETPA.
EPTA.
The census,
Oh,
That
the
was-
vacancy study.
right.
Okay,
Now, at the time in September, and in April, we discussed that, and it was discussed, said that that was illegal, being legally discussed. And we would find out by now if there was any resolvement made, that's it.
To do the
That was my first
inspections,
question.
Well, the whole.
yeah, check the vacancy study to make sure it was accurate.
So the question there is, has that been resolved or are they still kicking it around?
the answer to your question is that while we were in the process of doing that, there was a lawsuit initiated by several landlords, including 2 landlords in Nyack that were impacted by the vacancy study, which did inhibit our ability to then do any follow-up work on it without running into concerns with an open litigation. The larger answer to your question is that we remain committed to getting the ETPA enacted within Nyack. That will probably require another vacancy survey at some point. We will refine our approach to it to make sure that we are getting an accurate count. In the meantime, we are working with landlords about putting in some voluntary restrictions on their ability to raise rents beyond a certain level. Well below what is now allowed under the good cause eviction law passed by New York State, well below the 10% that they passed, where that's what the landlords are currently negotiating with us about. So we definitely ran into a roadblock with the vacancy survey. And we were a little stymied, but we're gonna continue to push at it, I promise.
Joe, could you also mention demand?
Second,
We're also going to be, to the extent to which there is some teeth to the New York State good cause litigation. Andy, we gotta get that. I think there's a model out there for us adopting good cause eviction. What did I say?
litigation.
Oh,
Well, let's not opt into the good cause litigation, just the good cause eviction. But there is a model. I think I sent it around. It's from Albany County or the city of Albany, I forget. But there's a very simple model for us to opt into the state law. Let's try to get that on the agenda for next, or it's a discussion at the next meeting. And so we can set a public hearing to get that thing adopted. Because I would like us to be one of the first one of the first municipalities to opt into that. And I haven't heard of anybody who's done it yet because it takes time to go through the regulatory process. But thank you for raising that again to our attention. I appreciate it.
And the second question I had here was one of the tenants handed me her new lease, coming lease.
All right.
And she said, do you know anything about them? And I have to pay liability of administration, legal liability as part of it.
We're out of time, but I will just say to you that under the 2019 rent laws, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not your lawyer, and I'm not the lawyer for the tenants, but I know this area of the law from my previous work. Landlords cannot charge a tenant beyond, when they do a lease, beyond 1 month of rent, which can go to security deposit or it can go to whatever they want to go to, but only 1 month on top of the rent that they charge. All right, so if they're charging extra fees, they're not really allowed to do that.
No, well, in my
If you have
final,
anything else about this, feel free to reach out to me offline. You can stay after the meeting and I'll talk about it with you.
yeah, but this is quick. This is.
Okay, but really quick, we're out of time. I
Okay,
guess gotta be
in
fair.
finding this I found out that this tenant is paying what they call a monthly electrical fee. And I asked her, what is that? It's
Alright.
an apartment that's not recorded. So they're paying the electrical fee to the owner because it's really.
I just don't, there's nothing, I'm not, we're not regulating those issues. That's not you should, the person who's having a problem should reach out to legal aid to see if what's happening is legal, okay? Legal aid will advise. This is the gentleman that was here earlier. Alex, he's very good and he's really committed to his work. And they can advise you. I really can. Nobody here on the board can really advise you on that, other than the general statement of law that I gave you a few minutes ago.
Okay.
All right, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Next up.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it. That's it on the list.
Is there anybody else that didn't get on the list that would like to speak? Please come up, state your name. And you don't have to give us your address, but where you're from.
Matthew Johnson, Fall River. People have spoken here. Sure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. People here have spoke about a ceasefire in Gaza. One person said she's a proud Zionist. Whether you are pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, I think it's very important to recognize that a ceasefire can be beneficial for both sides because both sides are seeing the devastation. Both sides have their civilians being killed, and it doesn't need to be the case. I urge you all to just consider speaking amongst yourselves about the issue, and please consider signing the ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, since a number of people came here to talk about the ceasefire resolution, I will repeat my personal statement that I've given from the beginning of this regarding the fact that I don't believe the village of Nyack should have a foreign policy, or that the people of Nyack elected me or the other trustees to assert symbolic positions on issues that do not directly implicate the village. And I know there's people who disagree with that, and that's fine. But that, since you've expressed your opinion, I wanted to just not be oblivious to the fact that you have a passion about this issue and explain where I stand on it. If anybody else on the board wants to speak to the issue, they should feel free to go ahead.
I've said what I said before, so.
Anybody else? All right, I will say that I had met with some of the people who've been coming.
Oh, I've said like what I've said in the past. I still stand by my statements, so.
What you say?
Oh, I said I don't feel like feel the need to repeat it. I do personally believe in a ceasefire. I just don't believe that this is the role. This is not a Q&A. I'm just saying I know where my personal opinions lie. I've been trying to thread the needle as best I can, so I'm gonna leave it at that for now.
All right, I did have a meeting with some of the people who have been coming consistently to talk about the ceasefire. I had coffee with them last week. We had a very nice conversation. It was very constructive. I thought they articulated their position. I tried to articulate mine. The one thing that we did leave with, and I'm gonna let the board know about this, is that they have come at times and talked not about the general issue regarding the ceasefire, but about the extent to which the pro-ceasefire people, whether they're Palestinian or people supporting Palestine, have been subject to either threats or some form of physical assault or something like that. Basically expressions of what I would consider to be hate to them. And I told them that I would not be, I would be open to discussing a resolution articulating the fact that in Nyack, we do not countenance hate in any form, including those forms. And we've said that before. We've said it when it has come up, when there have been individual issues, for example, people, defacing public property, or people putting things out, doing a rally or something like that. We've made a statement denouncing hate. And I'm completely, and I don't know if the sense of the board is that I would be completely in favor of that kind of resolution if they wanted to propose something, or we might come up with something on our own. So, but I want to let them have the opportunity, if they want to draft something for us to do that. So I've given them that opportunity, and if they don't take me up on it, then I might be working with Andy and coming up with something that we can state. Because it's not about taking a stand on a public policy issue that involves foreign policy. It's about speaking for the people in our community who are feeling threatened and not safe. And I don't want that. And I don't think they should feel that way. And I want them to know that we support them like we support all people who are victims of any kind of hate speech or hate activity. All right, just want to let you know about that. All right, so we'll talk about that more individually. If anybody has any questions or comments about me, we won't talk about it collectively, Dennis, but we can talk about it. You can reach out to me individually about it. With all that said, there is no executive session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Anybody?
Do you wanna?
Motion passes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, Andy, I'm gonna give you my mom's work number because she can answer her phone.
Andy,
With respect, she's nine.
Bye, you two.
goodbye, public, the 5 people that watch this every week.
Not,
Like it.
So I could have tomorrow.